Hey guys, it's Miss Wilkie, and today we're going over the lesson for congruent triangles, which is lesson 5.2 through 5.6. So let's go ahead and jump in. First of all, congruent, as y'all remember, kind of means the same thing as equal. So it says when given congruent polygons, corresponding sides are congruent and corresponding angles are congruent. So that means everything will stay the same. So number one, identify all pairs of congruent corresponding parts. They list sides first, so we're going to go ahead and start with that. Everything needs to match up correctly. So there's two different ways you can do this. First of all, they have a congruent statement written right up here. This ABCD is congruent to EFGH. That's a congruent statement. And we can figure out which sides match up just by the order of these letters. So since A is first, it's going to match up with E because E is first. Same thing with B. B is second, so it's going to match up with F, which is second. Then we have C, which is third. It's going to match up with letter G, which is third. And then our last letter D is going to match up with H. So remember, for sides, you need to name it using two letters. So we're going to go ahead and just start easy. Start with the first two, which are A and B. And we can say they're congruent to the first two letters of the other shape. And those first two letters are E and F. So then we're just going to go ahead and repeat this for every single combination of letters. So we've already done the first two. Let's go on to the second two, which are B and C. And the second and third letter of the other shape are F and G. So now we can do the third and the fourth letters. So our last two, which are C and D. And the last two of the other shape are G and H. Now, as you can tell in the picture, there's definitely four sides, so we're still missing one more. That's going to be our first and our last letter of both of those shapes. So our last ones are going to be AD is congruent to EH. All right, so there's two ways to do this. This is just by looking at your congruent statement, all the letters. The other way you can do it is also by matching up the pictures and the angles. So let's double check. Our first one we had said was AB. So if I go over here and trace A to B, you can see that A has 3 arcs and B has 2 arcs. So we're going to look for the matching side on the other shape. Now, be careful on this one, it's on the left side, but when we go to the other shape, it's not going to still be on the left side. That's why we have to check the angles and the arcs and make sure they're the same amount. So if you notice on our other shape, E is the one with 3 arcs and F is the one with 2 arcs. So our matching side would be right here, which is what we got for our first answer. You can use either one of these methods, whichever one's easier for you. Now let's go ahead and do the angles. For this one, same process. You can either just match up letters or you can count how many arcs there are in each corner. So let's go ahead and start alphabetically with letter A. So angle A is the first letter in the congruent statement. And then for the other shape, the first letter is angle E. So those two have to match up. Same thing if you want to look at the picture, angle A has 3 arcs over here, and angle E also has 3 arcs. All right, next letter, second letter is B, and the matching second letter is F. So B and F are going to be congruent. Next is angle C and angle G that are both in the third spot. And then our last one's angle D is going to be congruent to angle H. All right, for our next section, number 2, it says find the values of X and Y. So we're going to go ahead and match things up here, make sure we know where everything is. And we've got our congruent statement over here on the right side. They said triangle XYZ is congruent to triangle RST. Now remember, these letters match up, so the X and the R are going to be the same angle. So we can go ahead and do that here. X, I'm going to go ahead and circle them so we can see X and R are going to match up together. And then Y and S are the middle letters. So I'm going to do Y and S in a different color. And then our last letter, Z and T, I'm going to do that in a third color. So they're saying that all of those angles are going to match up to each other. They should be congruent, which means they should be the same size. So they want us to find the values of x and y. Let's start alphabetically and go with our x's. We've got an x down here where it says 2x minus 20. And we want to see what would be the corresponding part. That one's pointing at the blue angle, angle y. And then over here, our blue angle, they said it was 30 degrees on the other shape. So since these are congruent shapes, we know the corresponding parts are also congruent. So we can go ahead and write out the equation for this and say that 2x minus 20 equals 30. And then from here, we would just solve. We want to add 20 on both sides to get rid of it. So bring down your 2x, the 20's cancel out, and 30 plus 20 is 50. And then our last step, we want to divide by 2 to get rid of it. And 50 divided by 2 is 25. All right, the other part, they want y. So we're going to go back, look at our shapes, figure out where y is. Here's 3y plus 9. And if you notice right next to it, it's got a tick mark. So any other side that has a tick mark on either one of the shapes is going to be matching up. So here's our matching information on the other shape. It says 15. So again, we're going to go ahead and set these equal to each other because they are congruent parts. So we can do 15 equals 3y plus 9. And then again, we just want to solve it here. We're going to start with the 9 because it's further away from our letter. 15 minus 9 is 6. We can bring down our 3y and the 9's cancel out. And then our last step, we want to divide both sides by 3 to get rid of that. So y is going to equal 2. Alrighty, for this next section, it's talking about our congruence theorems and how we can prove that two triangles are congruent. So we've got some steps here to make it easier. Step 1, it says label congruent sides within S and label congruent angles within A. So on here, we just find our markings. For example, here's a tick mark right here. So that's a side we'd label with an S. And then arcs are always angles. So we would label this as an angle and we would label this as an angle. Now you want to double check, make sure it's the same for both triangles. So we're going to go ahead and do the other one as well. We have a side here, we have an angle here, and we have an angle here. So you're literally just labeling the markings that they gave you. Step number 2, circle the letter that's furthest away from the other letters. So here you're going to want to pick just one triangle. Don't do both of them because it'll confuse you. So just pick one. I'm going to go with the one over here on the left side for no reason. And we're picking the letter that's furthest away from the other letters. So sometimes they can be kind of close. Just use your best judgment. Usually you can tell which one's the middle letter. Just don't pick that one. We want to pick what's furthest away. So in my opinion on this one, the one that's furthest away is this A right here. All right, step number 3, it says connect it to the closest letter. You cannot cut through the triangle. So our two options here, we can either go straight up to this A, or we can go to the right, around the corner, over to this S. Now we're picking the shortest route. So we don't want to go around a corner. If you're going around a corner, that's usually the longer route. So we don't want to do that. We want to go with that first route that we did there. So we're going to go ahead and connect our A with our other A. All right. Step number 4, connect it to the final letter. So this is kind of like a path. We've already started with the A at the bottom. We went to the A at the top. And now we're going to continue that path to our S. And our last step, determine if it is one of the 5 congruence theorems below. It can be backwards, but you cannot switch up the letters. So the order that we have here that we just figured out was AAS. And what it says there in the parentheses, it can be backwards. So we can also call this SAA. And then down at the bottom, it tells you what your 5 congruence theorems are. These are the 5 ones that we can possibly use. And then you got 2 over here that will never, ever, ever be used. So let's talk about them real quick. The ones that we can use, SSS, that means all 3 markings are sides. The next 3 is a combination of angles and sides. And then the last one, HL, stands for hypotenuse and leg. So that one's a little bit of a different kind. We'll go over one of those in a little bit. The ones that are not congruence theorems. We cannot prove two triangles are congruent by AAA because those are angles and that would not prove that they're the same size. Your angles can stay the same if the shape is changing sizes. So that will not prove that they're congruent. And then the other one, SSA, we like to say that if it spells a bad word backwards, then it's not going to work. Okay, so just watch out for that one. Make sure you're not using it. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the back side of the page here. That says they want us to match the congruence theorem with its picture. So we're just going through the 5 congruence theorems and looking at examples for each one of them. Let's go ahead and look at the pictures to start off with. So answer A, we got 2 triangles there. We're going to go ahead and label both of them. So we've got an angle right here, we've got another angle over here, and we've got a side here. Now again, just to be careful, you might want to label both triangles so that you see that they're the same. I don't want to confuse y'all though, so we're only going to do 1 triangle for each so that it doesn't get too busy with all the letters. So our second step, like we were saying earlier, we need to pick the letter that's furthest away. On this example, this A over on the left side will be furthest away. And we need to decide which one's the closest route. Should we go to the right to the other A, or should we go up around the corner to the S? And earlier we said if you're going around the corner, that's more than likely not correct. So our path is going to end up at the other A. So there's our 2 A's. And then you're just going to finish off your path with going to the other letter. So this one is going to be AAS or backwards SAA. Either one's correct. So over here for our answers, we're going to say number 6 is letter A. All right, next one, answer B. Again, we're just wanting to label 1 triangle. All 3 of the markings here are tick marks, which are labeling sides. So there are no A's here, they're all sides. And since it's all the same letter, the order doesn't matter. We can just see that they're all S's, and we know that number 3 has all S's. So answer B is side, side, side. For answer C, this time we've got 2 sides, and we've got an angle in between. And for this one, we are picking the letter that's furthest away. Just be careful on this one. Like I said, the A is between, so that's going to be your middle letter. Some people just struggle a little bit sometimes on seeing that A as the middle letter instead of it being the furthest letter away. Since it's in the middle, that means these 2 S's are going to be the outsides. So that A has to be in the middle. So this is going to be SAS, which is number 4. For number 5, we've got 2 angles this time, and the side is in the middle. And this picture happens to line up nice and neat. We have ASA. So number 5 is answer D. And our last one, E, this is the one that's a little bit special. We know right off the bat because it's the only one that has the little right angle box. And that should be your first hint. If you see that, always check HL first. It won't always be HL, but that's a good starting place to check. Okay, so this time instead of labeling S's for sides and A for angles, we're going to try out the HL, the hypotenuse leg. So remember, the hypotenuse is always the side across from your right angle box. This time it does have tick marks over there, so we can label it an H. And then leg is either one of the 2 sides attached to your right angle. So this time it's over here on the left. So since we have these 2 things, it does work out. Letter E is going to be HL, which is number 7. All right, on the next section, we are just identifying the congruence theorem and getting some more practice in here. On number 8, we have all sides on this one, so our congruence theorem is going to be SSS. For number 9, we've got a box here, so again, we want to check and see if HL is correct. Across from the box is H, and we have tick marks there, so we can label it. And then any other side next to the box is L, so we do have HL on this one. And for number 10, we've got angles, and we have a side in the middle. And ASA usually lines up nice and neat. They are already in order. So ASA. In this next section, it's talking about hidden information. Sometimes there's some information that is there, they just don't label it because it's assumed that it's already there. So let's go through each of these. First one, reflexive property. If you remember when we went over our different properties, reflexive means that it is the same. Reflexive is the same. So in this picture, if you notice, there's two different triangles and they join right here in the middle. That line is going to be the same for both of those triangles. So we can go ahead and draw 3 tick marks through it because they've already used 1 and 2. So this third matching side is going to get 3 tick marks. The one in the middle, vertical angles. Remember we've talked before, vertical angles are always across from each other. So over here, these two would be examples of a vertical angle. And now we have the same thing formed with these triangles. So they cross right there in the middle. So the angles that are going to be across from each other should also be equal. So we can go ahead and add in our arcs to show that. And then our last one, alternate interior angles of parallel lines are congruent. So this one kind of helps if you extend your lines a little bit. We've got this line, which is a transversal, because you've got this parallel line and you've got this parallel line. So what we're saying here is that alternate interior angles are congruent. So our two alternate interior angles, you can have this one and this one, because remember they've got to be on opposite sides of that transversal, or it could be the same thing on the other direction. So this one, we're going to give it 2 arcs since we already used 1. And this one will be congruent to each other. So all this is information that they won't necessarily provide for you, but you can add it to the picture so that you can label it. Alrighty, the last section, it says identify the congruence theorem, complete the congruent statement on number 12 and number 13. So for number 11, let's go ahead and label what we do have. Remember, it's 2 triangles, so we only want to go with one of them. You get to pick, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and go with this triangle over here. I'm going to highlight it so we know which one we're looking at. And then we're going to label the information just given to us right now. So right now, all they gave us was this side. We don't want to label the other one up on the top because that is the other triangle. So all we have right now is one side. From our 5 congruent statements, one side is not going to give us anything. We need to find some more information to see if they are congruent. So we're going to use that information we're looking at above. Remember the reflexive property, if it's got that same side that they both share, that's going to be another pair of sides that are the same. So we can go ahead and add tick marks there, and then we can go ahead and add an S to it. All right, then our last one. Remember, we talked just a few minutes ago about alternate interior angles. If you need to, you can go ahead and extend the lines so you can see them. Here's your parallel lines. And here's our transversal. And we said angles that are on the inside are congruent. So this angle should match up with this angle. And this angle should match up with this angle. So there's a couple ways you can do this. As you can see, we already have 2 S's here. We only need one more letter. If we go ahead and put our A for the angle right here, this would give us SAS because here's our letter that's furthest out. The A is closest and the other S is the closest. So this would be SAS. Now instead, if you went with the other angle, the green angle, that would make your A furthest away from the 2 S's. And if you put those 3 letters together, that's going to be our bad word that we don't want to use, which means it's not a congruence theorem. So we would have to use the red angle in this picture and not the green angles. All right, for number 12, we've already got sides labeled here. We've got a side here and a side here. And again, we are only looking at one triangle, so don't confuse yourself and label the other triangle. Let's just stick with one triangle. Now that's only 2 S's. We need to find one more piece of information here. And we can see right here in the middle, both of those triangles are sharing that side. So that means we can go ahead and put tick marks on that side, and we know that's an S for side. So for this one, our congruent statement is going to be SSS. Or sorry, our congruence theorem is going to be SSS. And then they want us to complete the congruent statement. So all we're doing here is matching up letters. Their first letter was G. And the easiest way to do this is to see which tick marks it's between. So letter G right here is between the 1 tick mark and the 2 tick marks. So on the other triangle, we want to see what's between 1 and 2. Here's 1 and 2, and between it would be J. So J has to be the first letter. For the next one, letter H. H is up here on the top. It was between the 1 and the 3. So on our other shape, between 1 and 3 is going to be the letter K. And then for our last one, K, yes, it's repeating itself, it's fine. K for our yellow shape is between the 2 and the 3. And for the other shape, between 2 and 3 is going to be H. So that completes our congruent statement. We matched up all the letters in the correct order. All right, last one, number 13. Let's label the information we have already. We've got an angle up top here, and we've got a side. And that's it for each of the triangles. So we need to find another piece of missing information. If you notice here, these triangles are crossing, they're intersecting. So that means we're going to have angles formed in the middle here that are going to be congruent because they are vertical angles. So there's our last piece of information. We can go ahead and label that with an A because it's an angle. We're going to start with what letter's furthest away, which is the A up top. The next closest letter is the other A because we don't have to go around a corner. And then we're going to finish it off by connecting it to the S. So this congruence theorem is AAS. And then we just got to match up our letters again. So the first letter that they gave us here was the W. And this time it's a little bit easier because W has an arc next to it. So we're going to look on the other triangle, and the other triangle has an arc right here, letter A. So our first letter is going to be A. The second letter was letter X. On ours, X has nothing next to it. There's no angle markings. So on the other shape, that would be letter Z. And then for the last letter, letter Y is our letter in the middle of those vertical angles. And that's a shared point between both of them. So it's also going to be Y for the other shape. All right, guys, that's it for these notes. If you got any questions, please let us know. And I hope you have a great day.